Oilers Live Podcast. Oilers Live Podcast. Oilers Live Podcast. Oilers Live Podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Whoa. Hey, it's Michael here with Oilers Live. What the fuck? Battle of Alberta. I'll just get the profanity out of the way right away.
Wow.
We've waited a few years for this. Well, the screen right now, for those of you tuning in, looks a lot like a couple of nightmares I've had. But this is the Heavy Hockey crew, and happy to have all these guys on. We've got Dash from Straight Off the Pipe. We've got Josh from Tough Call Pod. Ryan Lotsberg, affectionately known as Lotsy by the Heavy Hockey guys, who is a contributor to heavyhockey.com. Mr. Kirk Morris, our resident goalie man and contributor to heavyhockey.com. And Mr. Mike Dursa, you can't see the top of his head, but it's there. And he's from Straight Off the Pipe podcast as well. Thanks, guys, for coming on. Series preview, Battle of Alberta. Excited or what? What do you guys think? All right, not everybody all at once.
Woo!
Woo-hoo, there we go.
Excited's an understatement.
Whoa!
Yeah, all right. All right. guys.
Finally, the Battle of Alberta has come back to Alberta.
I know. And last time the Flames kind of shit the bed. There was a chance, right, in 06, but the Flames shit the bed on that one. And but now they're here. They almost did it again. I mean, if Tyler Seguin had a couple years earlier had that same chance, it'd probably be Dallas and the Retribution series, but instead it's Battle of Alberta. All right. I'm going to randomly go to somebody here to kind of give us their thoughts and open this up tonight. Man, I should have got some like random wheel or something to give us a little bit of a... Josh, give us your thoughts. What are your thoughts on the Battle of Alberta? Just give us a quick summary. How we got here, how you feeling? Let us know, man.
Well, I feel good. Watching Calgary and Dallas, it's one of the only series in the last 10 years where I've just wanted both teams to lose. There was just no good outcome for me as a hockey fan or the Oilers. We don't really care much for both those teams at the moment. So, but I am glad that it is Calgary, honestly, because I feel they deserve to win. And I think the hockey world deserves this after all this time. Everybody's a winner right now. I'm looking forward to this series. I like how we got here. I like what we accomplished. I like how we grew and got over that hump. And that's all that matters. Every series is different. Every opponent is different. It doesn't matter how close or how tight checking or how low scoring or high scoring any series was for either team. This is a new series. Every series starts off fresh, and you never know what you're going to get. So kind of looking forward to seeing what we do get.
Yeah, you said something that just struck me. Is both teams deserve to be here. There's no doubt, right? Like this was Calgary was the better team in that series, if not for Ottinger. And if I look back on the Oilers-Kings series, Edmonton was by far the better team, with the exception of a couple of games where they kind of inched us over the finish line there. Lotsy, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting series. Both teams are somewhat evenly matched, I would say. with all the Twitter trolling that goes on back and forth.
It
Finally
doesn't
this
happen.
decent girl. The way I'm seeing the series, we got Calgary, who is a team that is their star player is entering unrestricted free agency next year. They have 10 skaters committed for next season, and they've loaded up throughout the season to try to go for it this year. I think there's a reason that they're doing that, because they don't think that this group is going to be quite the same going into next season as it is this year. So this is the year they're going for it. Whereas the Oilers, they're a team that's built to be basically the way they are for the next 2 to 4 years. We're going to have a few changes here or there around the edges, but the core of this group is going to be intact for the next few years. So Oilers team on the rise. Calgary's the team that's got all their cards in right now. So we'll see which strategy is going to pay off.
Who would have thought that all your cards in meant Sutter behind the bench? Kirk, what's your thoughts going into this series?
It's going to be a goaltending battle, I think. Markstrom's coming off of a 943 save percentage there against Dallas. That was an excellent series if you're a goaltending guy. Ottinger's going to be a hell of a goaltender down the stretch there for Dallas there in the next couple of years. If he trends up right there. And as far as the Battle of Alberta, I have no worries about Smith. And it should be good, man. Like it's probably going to be high octane offense, but on both sides. At least I'm hoping it is. Maybe not a runaway shootout like it was there during the regular season there in a couple of games, but yeah, no, it's going to be awesome, man. I can't wait for it to happen.
Yeah, and guys, we'll get into this because I want to talk about defense, offense, goaltending, but right now, just kind of get your thoughts. We're gonna go. I don't know. We'll finish off with Dash. So, Dursa, what's your thoughts on the game?
Well,
Or the series, rather.
yeah, if I was JR from wrestling, I would say this is going to be a slobber knocker and buckle up and, take no prisoners kind of series. I think we're in for a dandy. It's going to be fun.
What would Michael Jordan say?
Job's not finished.
Job's not
How does
finished.
this series compare to the Bulls versus the Pistons back in the 80s, there? So that's what we all got to know.
Actually, that's a good question. I mean, that is a good question.
Okay? Just punching each other right in the face.
That's right.
I think it's Bulls and Pistons, and both teams, both the Bulls and the Pistons, have Rodman in Evander Kane. So,
Yeah, fair enough. Good call. Dash, finish us off. Your thoughts, kind of a summary on the upcoming Battle of Alberta.
I appreciate you saving the best for last, my friend. Yeah, when you're going to get the best, you save it. I love the way the Oilers won that series against the Kings. I think, to see, I thought they played their best hockey in the 1-goal games. It wasn't in their blowouts. And coming into an elimination game in game 6 and then again in game 7 and with their backs up against the wall and prevailing and having to cross that hump and exercise that demon, like Kirk said, or whatever else, whatever analogy you want to throw out there, they did it. They got their monkey off their back and now they're on to Calgary. So, I think the intriguing part of the series for me is going to see how the styles match up. Dallas and LA played a very similar style where they didn't have the offensive upside and prowess. So they really tried to just clog up the neutral zone and play excellent defense. In fact, I'd say the Kings almost played perfect defense against the Oilers. Whereas the Oilers and the Flames both like to generate their offenses off the rush. So I think that it's going to be a very intriguing battle in this, track meet, if you will, where neither team's going to want to, play a lot of trapping. They're going to want to send in 2 guys forechecking and those styles and the way they match up, and to see how the 2 defensive cores handle double the forechecking they had, right? Both the Kings and Dallas Stars would send 1 guy deep. These guys are going to send 2, sometimes 3 guys deep. So I think it's going to be interesting. Battle of the goaltenders will probably prevail. Smith's puck handling is going to be very, very key in this series.
Not that Markstrom's a slouch with the puck. I mean, I mean, he had a nice pass just the other night in that.
Will
series,
not
so-
skill prevails. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously, nobody would have thought that would even be a question, but Smith has earned the right to be included in that category right now. I mean, he has been one of the best goalies in over a dozen games now in the league, right? As far as save percentage goes, and
Kirk said Markstrom had a 9.43. Smith had a 9.38.
Yeah, very, very, very close, and even going into the playoffs, right? I mean, Smith deserved the shot. Let's start with defense, guys, because there's look. You listen to we can call them homers for either side, but I've heard guys from both sides saying their defense was deeper than our defense, and our defense is deeper than their defense, and it really depends on how close you are to Edmonton or how close you are to Calgary in terms of what you think. I'd like to say we're nothing but very, very, very impartial here, and so
No homers allowed.
That's right, no homers allowed. We look at this defense. You've got on the top, you've got Hanifin and Anderson for Calgary, Shillington and Stone, and then Zadorov and Goodbranson, which could be the two biggest D-men in the league, or biggest D pair in the league. And then for Edmonton, I mean, we don't know what we have, right? We've got likely Nurse and CC, Keith and Bouchard, and Kulak on either Russell or Barry, or potentially both. I would contend, my personal opinion is, I think the Flames have a deeper defensive core if you go just on the six, but the way that Edmonton has utilized its defense over the past dozen or so games, including a couple of times in the playoffs, I'd say it matches up quite well. Let's start with you, Durs. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Darnell Nurse is the best athlete out of all, everybody on either team.
Fair statement.
And I think that's going to pay dividends in a series like this, because you're going to get pushed both, with your skating and your ability to give hits and take hits. And I think Nurse is the guy there. He's the stud. Cody Ceci played a pretty poised series against the Kings, and I don't see that changing too much. What are we going to get out of Keith and Bouchard? Are we going to get the game 6, game 7 versions of those two, or are we going to get the duds that that they had in the series? I'm not sure. I thought Tyson Barrie was pretty steady throughout that whole series. If we get that again, I kind of like our chances, and his ability on the power play to move the puck and let it go sometimes is a bit of an X factor. Zadorov and Goodbranson, I don't like for our forwards having to go in there against those two, because they're big bodies and they can dole out some pretty big nasty hits and play. But you know what? I think our D as a whole is probably on par with theirs. I just think that we have some upper echelon talent, and then sometimes we don't know what we're getting out of Bouchard and Keith as a pairing. Sometimes they're really good and really poised, and sometimes they're not. We need them to be good to have a chance in this series, I kind of think.
Well, and I said it in the Game 6 postgame. I mean, CC has just had an amazing playoffs. In fact, he's had a pretty amazing year when you look at it. I would suggest to you that people outside of Edmonton don't realize what Edmonton has in CC, which I'm quite all right with. But if I would tell you that any analyst that's talking about the Oilers never mentioned CC, and that's just a mistake. I'm sure Sutter is not a stupid man, so he'll know what to do. But CC's been great, I think. Kirk, your thoughts? Defense.
I think Nurse, if he holds up, is the best out of everybody as well. I'm with Nurse on that one. Rasmus Anderson on the other side can be a thorn offensively if you don't watch, like point shots. They're from Calgary. They can get you that way. As far as the Oilers go, they're once again there with if Woody just decides to run 11-7, you do have that nice mix. You could even get Broberg into the fold there too if needed. Yep. So that's nice to have that depth finally. But yeah, and I'm kind of curious what they're going to bring up for Black Aces there from the farm there as well. They're going to bring up Neiman Leinen. You could throw him in for size. It's going to be really interesting to see how they do fare against that twin towered setup there with Gabranson and Zadorov. Just ask Luke Glendening. He hits like a Mack truck, so you got to watch out. But it'll be really interesting to see how the actual gameplay works itself out. If it's going to be a track meet or if they do decide to go the 1-3-1 route there as far as the Oilers goes, or just try to slow Calgary down because they are very deep offensively.
No doubt. I like what you said about Black Aces who they bring up. I mean, it's terrible for Bakersfield to be out in 3 straight like that. It gives the Oilers some options in terms of who they bring up and
especially versus the Stockton Heat.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. But you know what? Like now this is not just rivalry; it's also retribution. Dash, your thoughts on defense?
I think when you look at the comparison, Durst and Kirk nailed it. I think Nurse is the best defenseman on either team, so maybe give us an advantage there. I don't have the points in front of me. I know there was Anderson had maybe the most points for the Flames, I want to say, from the back end. I don't think they had more than one 40-point getter. And
I was just checking Dash. Anderson had 50, Hannafin had 48.
Okay, so 2 guys over 40 points.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty sharp drop-off after that, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 30 or 28 points or something.
Yeah, Shillington
like
with 31.
Yeah, Tanev had 28 or something. So, we've got Barry, we've got a lot more offensive upside. We've got guys that scored 40 points. I think if Nurse wasn't healthy, he'd have had that too. So oddly enough, for 2 straight series, even though I always thought our defense could end up being our Achilles heel in these playoffs, we walk into our 2nd straight series where I do honestly believe we've got the better defense and depth on defense. So it'll come down to, I believe, the Oilers' defensive deficiency of giving up odd man rushes. Now, that was more of a Tippett problem than a Woodcroft problem. And we've talked on these shows before about how Woodcroft employed his 1-3-1 and clogged up the neutral zone. And I think that's going to be absolutely imperative again against a team like the Flames, who generate offense from that rush. So it's going to be critical to keep those guys high and play defense first and not cheat. And then I think the other flip side of it is in our own end, where I think it's going to be very interesting to see. There isn't a bottom 6 player for the Flames. It doesn't seem like that's 6'4", 230, like whether it's Richie or Lucic or whoever's bombing in there, there's always somebody banging the D. So I think we really got to be, obviously careful. And I think we did it to LA. We invested in physicality on their defense, and because LA had a small D core, it worked out over 7 games. And there's no doubt that the Flames are going to try to do that to us. So again, it falls on Smith's puck handling a little bit, and whether we can do that. 11-7 versus 12-6, I think will also be a factor. Whether we go 12-6 to save Draisaitl's health and not have to put him out so much, or whether we go 11-7 to have the versatility on D, but we don't know what's going to happen there, but I think that'll be a key.
Yeah, I'm curious how goes Draisaitl, given the fact that he's taking all the rest he can. He's not been out practicing, so
hasn't been out once. The flip side on Calgary's D, Michael, I don't know, right? It depends if Shillington and Tanev play.
Yep.
A little bit of
Tanev
research,
That's right.
He skated, but whether he'll play or not, who knows? But just looking at some quick stats, and the reason I know he had 28 points, Number 1 and 2 on their team in plus minus from the back end. Tanev and Shillington. Number 3 and 4 in points from the back end, and number 3 and 4 in time on ice per game from the back end. So that's a big blow if those two guys can't play.
Yeah, no doubt. Josh.
Well, you're talking about depth and D. It depends on what you want in your D. If you're looking for a particular type of D that Calgary's looking for, then maybe we're not as deep as they would like, but we don't play their style. We're not their team. For what our purposes are for our defense, we have the guys that we want that can get us there. Our D are relatively quiet, which is nice, I think, in a way, especially with a team like Dash said that's going to try and come charge in at them. Our guys are good at not getting stuck in spots they're not supposed to be in terms of high danger places. I mean, they're not exceptionally aggressive. They're just very smart checking positionally. They play hockey a very solid way where they're just looking to not get beat. They're not looking to destroy anybody in general. They take their moments and they do things right, but they're not always looking for that large hit and being engaged in that type of contact. They're just looking to do their job and get the puck out as quickly as possible. So I think, it's kind of like the Taylor Hall syndrome where it's all excitement and explosion and energy. And then if you just get popped that once, then it's kind of like that boxing match where the guy's doing like 1,000 flips and then the other guy's just watching him do all these flips and turns. And then he just one punches him and knocks him out. That's what Calgary wants to do. And our D don't play that way. They're very quick at getting the puck out. Our wingers are very good at supporting it. So it's like they're not as likely to be blown up probably as someone else's team. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for is we won't, with Mike Smith's ability to move the puck, we won't spend a lot of time in our end. Especially if we employ the same strategy, hopefully we spend more time in their end anyway. And they're constantly trying to dump it in and just get off and save themselves and hope the next wave can do better. I'm hoping we won't have a lot of sustained time in our zone. As far as the 12-6 kind of 11-7 thing, when they were talking about that in Game 7 against the Kings, and they were like, well, it's risky to go with 11-7, especially if Draisaitl's questionable health, because then you're down forwards. But I was counting our 9 going like, okay, so what if Draisaitl all of a sudden can't go? Now, with less forwards, you're just giving more time to McDavid, Kane, Yamamoto, Puljujärvi, McLeod, Ryan, Nugent Hopkins. Like I'm finding a hard time getting to the problem there. Like,
Yeah.
Sustainability.
So, and we have guys waiting in the wings, kind of the same as our D. Maybe they're not the most sought after players, but they do the job we need them to do. That next man up mentality that we haven't had in a long time is you have it for the playoffs for those types of reasons. So I think we're probably as comfortable as we'll ever be in terms of our depth. And I like what we have there. Kind of excited.
If Dry can't go, wouldn't it be great to see Holloway slot in there? To get that shot. Or Josh, I want to ask you this actually. If we go 11-7, we called up somebody from Bakersfield. Would you rather be Broberg or Niemelainen?
Well, I just talked about not being physical, and then I'm going to say Niemelainen just because I like his physicality. It's nice to have that in your back pocket a little bit if things get out of hand. But really, I'd be fine with either. That's just what I see in Niemelainen right now. That might be more useful to us than what Broberg brings. But it depends on how the series goes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like
it is going to be.
My fear is how Broberg gets so blown up. I feel like he's one forecheck away in a Battle of Alberta from.
So, Lotzi, you're last. As Dash would say, we're saving the best for last here.
Yeah, of course. I'd say, honestly, for depth, I think it's pretty close. I like their top pairing is probably a little better than ours, but Darnell Nurse says it. Most guys have pointed out here is the best individual D. Second pairing, as Durst has said, Keith and Bouchard, good some nights, not so good other nights. Whereas like a Shillington and a Tanev, both pretty solid. Shillington's pretty young, but Tanev's got a little more experience. Same, you could say the same about Bouchard and Keith. Pretty close there. But I like our third pairing a lot better than their third pairing. Like Zadorov and Goodbranson are big, they're physical, but Kulak and Barry are the better skaters and they can move the puck a lot more. So today's game, I like our skill set a little bit better than their skill set. It's like what we were trying to do against LA. We were trying to get it deep, get their inexperienced D turned around and try to get in on the forecheck, try to make a mistake. I don't think Calgary's got the same, I don't think Calgary's a very good puck moving team from the back end. So I think the same similar strategy will work. So, hey, bonus for us. That's great. As far as what they can do to us, that 9-5 game, as much as you want to burn the tape and just throw it out, they were utilizing one specific tactic against us pretty much all night, and that was the stretch pass. They were always sending a guy deep, trying to stretch our D out, and they burned us on it, on a lot of the goals. So we'll see if Woodcroft's learned his lesson, and we'll see if the boys will be a little more conservative. I mean, that's part of it is D's got to get back. A bigger part of it is to turn the puck over at the blue line or a couple feet inside the blue line. Got like McDavid, Dry. Most guys they like to stop at the boards, turn back, and look for a trailer coming behind. But that's where Calgary is going to feast on us if they're going to have success in the series.
Yeah, no, I think you're 100%. We'll get to that, and we're going to talk obviously about offense. We'll go there next. I think it's safe enough to say if you're to compare top lines, Edmonton will win every time based solely on the strength of Connor McDavid. Now, that's not to say that Gaudreau, Lindholm, Tkachuk line was the top line in the league for much of the season. But Connor McDavid's on a whole other level. So if any of you disagree with that, you can just leave. And so then we'll talk about let's talk about depth scoring specifically. I watched the LA Kings versus the Oilers. We all did. We watched every minute, every moment, and I thought that our depth scoring did well. In fact, I thought, throughout. Well, I think in my mind, what happens is Connor is so much better than everybody else. It makes our guys like Nuge, Ryan, and Kane had some great shifts out there that were doing amazing work and keeping the puck in the offensive zone, and guys were Hyman, sorry. Hyman was doing miraculous things, I thought, throughout that series. But you've got Connor who's doing otherworldly things that those individual efforts by our depth scoring, I think, just kind of looks really human. and so, I'm sitting here the other day and listening to, pundits and analysts talk about the Oilers and how we were outplayed on the depth scoring front in the Kings series, and I just didn't feel that way. Maybe I'm wrong, and I've said before I can see some things, like I'm wearing my orange shaded glasses, and I just don't feel like that was the case here. My gut tells me that the contrast between McDavid and everybody else makes our depth scoring look less capable than they are. But it's I'm kind of curious as to your thoughts in terms of how they match up, and some of this will be some speculation as where you think Draisaitl ends up. Right? Does he end up on the top line with McDavid? There's been some thought that maybe he stays there if he's hurt because he can, he doesn't necessarily need to be all over the ice, if he's playing on McDavid's line. But if he's skating is at 100%, then he can certainly center his own line. Dash, we'll start with you this time.
I think, Draisaitl needs to skate straight lines. I think it had a lot to do with that too, right? When you're doing your crossovers and looping back as a centerman, that was a harder thing to do. Take out the top two centers from each team if you want to just compare depth scoring, right? Let's take McDavid, who's obviously better than Lindholm, and take Draisaitl out of it, who's better than Backlund, and just compare the wingers. I'd take Hyman and Kane over, obviously Chuck and Goudreau are pretty elite and very elite scorers. That's where it stops for me. After that, it's Coleman and Mangiapane and Dubé. Like, Dylan Dubé doesn't strike fear in the hearts of many. But then I look down the Oilers and, Josh said it earlier, that I find it hard to find a winger outside of that top line in Calgary that I wouldn't take over the Oilers in every single instance. So I think the depth scoring is our advantage. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's all going to kind of fall in place with how Woodcroft deploys those guys, right? What he's really successful with in Game 7 was basically running Connor McDavid through the first and second line, right? And I don't know how sustainable that is. Josh said he's not sure what the downside to that is. The downside to that is it's tough to play 3 lines over a 7-game series versus a team that's as physical as the Calgary Flames.
I'm going to ask you something, Dash, and curious what your thoughts are. But
please do.
What is there? Has there ever been a team that you remember where everybody seemed to be able to play together? Like that Game 6 and Game 7, it didn't seem to matter who was playing with who. Like, they just seemed to all mesh and gel. And like, I would tell you that, and this to me has a lot to do with Woodcroft. I'd tell you that this is the most chemistry we've seen in the team in a very long time. And I could give a shit if Connor McDavid's on the third line or the first line or the second line. He just seems to, it's Connor, so you can play with anybody, but everybody seems to, Nuge playing with Hyman and Kane, like, those guys all seem to just be a natural line. And when did they play it all throughout the year? I don't remember them playing on a line throughout the season, but they seem to play naturally together. McLeod seems to fit wherever you ask him to be, whether it's on the wing or in the center or first line or fourth line or third line. Like, McLeod is, a Swiss Army knife of a player.
Speed kills.
Yeah. and
kills.
The speed. Yeah. So, your thoughts? Does it matter?
You just took it off the tip of my tongue. The Swiss Army knife thing is really what it comes down to. I think when Hyman is a Swiss Army knife, Nuge is a Swiss Army knife, McLeod's a Swiss Army knife. So you start to throw those players into different situations and into different combinations. And you just end up with better combinations because of that chemistry and because of that versatility. But the other part of it is, and you touched on it first, Michael, it's Jay Woodcroft. The way that he is deploying these guys as pairs, the way that he's putting those guys out, and different situations. Okay, I think honestly what maybe happened is the entire team having the flu for games 4 and 5 caused Jay to put it all in a blender. He had no choice. He was just trying to find any two or three guys that had legs, let alone 6. And in doing that, and you throw them all together, I think everybody kind of got used to playing with each other and getting moved around. And all of a sudden you get to Game 6 and 7 and everybody can play together. Voila. I don't know. Call Jay Woodcroft a wizard, whatever.
Yeah. No, good point. Okay. Because, Dash said a few different things there. I'm going to put a little jump ball here. Who wants to go next? Talk about forwards.
I was just going to kind of add on there to the defensive side of things, in Game 6, when Nurse was taken out of the equation, unfortunately. Did anybody, really pay attention to Brent Kulak and how quiet of a game he played?
Oh, yeah.
It was just seamless.
Yeah.
But as far as the offense goes, I'm just going to hop on, piggyback off of what you guys said there as far as the versatility, as Woodcroft likes to call Ryan McLeod. And same with Nuge. Nuge is invaluable to this team as far as I'm concerned. On the PK, on the power play, he slows. It seems like he calms everything down. He has that calming presence where he's a feeder. You can feed it to McDavid, Draisaitl, whoever, or he can shoot it himself. So I think the X factor will be there, and I think we have that edge.
Yeah. I mean, we could talk versatility. Yeah, that's exactly the word that Woodcroft's been using, and 100%. I mean, I think that's exactly what we've been saying here. Who's up next? Talk about forwards. Dursa, you want to go?
I
Sure.
thought Dursa fell asleep.
Yeah.
Now we're doing fine. I think that acquisition of Evander Kane just really strengthens the whole lineup. He can play with Connor and ride shotgun there, and Connor can feed him the puck and he can rip it home off the rush. And if you need to play Leon with Connor because Leon doesn't have his regular mobility, he can drop back and him and Hyman and Nuge can be a line and be very effective. And, we're not the same team anymore. Before it used to be if you paired up Leon and Connor, then you could sleep on the rest of the lineup. That's not really the case anymore. There's more depth to go around. So whatever Jay decides is best for the team, I'm on board with. I'm not hot on him because we got rid of our depth by playing Leon and Connor. It's not the same thing anymore. You can do that, and you can still have other people throughout the lineup that can contribute and will contribute. And I'm not so worried if that's the way that they have to start out game one. So be it. Bring it.
Yeah. Good point. Lotzi, and then we'll finish off with Josh.
I'm not seeing a lot of the same things you guys are, unfortunately. Like, obviously, our top end skill is.
Sorry,
superior.
I hit mute there, Lotzi.
Yeah, sorry,
Go ahead.
I missed the Hummer memo there. But like, I'm just looking at the Flames regular season scoring. Like, I see 9 guys with over 30 points. So, like, I can't say the same for the Oilers. Like, they've got 3 solid lines of guys that are capable of producing over 30 points.
What did Mangiapane do against Dallas?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, you're getting ahead of me a little bit here.
What did anybody do against Dallas?
Yeah.
That's exactly it. Like, their secondary scoring disappeared against Dallas. But
well, and Mangiapane, all of his points were in the first part of the season, right? Like, he was tearing it up. If I recall, he was one of the top goal scorers in the first 10, 15 games, wasn't he?
He's still a pretty good player, but
he's not, damn it. He is not a good, no.
Let the Flames fan finish his speech.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just one sec. He did not like the physicality in that first round. I'll say that.
No.
Like, if we're looking at just numbers over the 82 game regular season, like Mangiapane, Hyman, pretty close. Lindholm and Kane would have been similarly paced over 82 games. Gaudreau and Kachuk were a little lower than Leon and Connor. Okay, so advantage Oilers there. But like, you go down a little further down the lineup, you have Backlund at 39, Yamel at 41. So like, those two are pretty close. But then you got Coleman, you got Dubé, you got Toffoli, you got Yarncroke. All of them are over 30 points for the season. You got Puljujärvi at 36, and then the list gets pretty dry for the Oilers after that. We like a lot of things that Ryan McLeod does, but only 21 points. Like, he does so many things well, but the points are just not quite coming for him yet. Warren Fogle, a little disappointing offensively, healthy scratch in the playoffs in games 6 and 7. Derek Ryan, again, had a couple of hot streaks, but overall, you're not looking to him for offense. You're looking for him to win some faceoffs and keep the puck out of his net, right? Like Devin Shore, we're not expecting much out of. Hasn't played all series, right? Zach Kassian, when he's hot, he can produce that way, but when he's playing at the bottom of the lineup, he doesn't produce that way. So, like, I give the depth scoring advantage to the Flames, but I think we go as far as Connor and Leon will take us, and I think they can take us pretty far.
Yeah, Lotzi, I think if you're looking at regular season stats, there's a couple of things to factor in there. One is, which Oilers are we talking about, right? Are we talking about first part of the season, middle of the season, or end of the season? And I'd love to break the stats down by then. I haven't, but I'd love to see how they match up then against the Flames, who, there were a lot of guys that came out of the gate hot for the Flames, and
like, a lot of guys in Calgary had their career years this year, and hats off to them. But to Mike's point as well, they disappeared against the Dallas in the playoffs. When the tough got going, they didn't show up. They disappeared. Right? We'll probably, like, if that's the same type of hockey that we can play against them, and if we can shut down the Gaudreau line, then we might have a good chance. But like if you're looking at it on paper, I'd give the advantage for depth to the Flames.
Yeah. There are only two teams that scored fewer goals in the first round than Calgary. The Dallas Stars, of course, and the Nashville Predators. So there you go.
I like that you just had that at the ready.
Oh yeah, no, I've got a lot of that. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for the trolls to settle in, and then I'll be there. No, I get what you're saying, though, Lotzi. I if you're to look at, I think here's the thing: is there's a couple things that I think, and we can we'll talk about this in a bit, but you have obviously everybody talks about regular season and playoffs being two different seasons, and there's no doubt they are. Everybody understands that. Officiating's different, everything's different about it, the way people play. I chalk it up to a lot of those guys on the Flames never got hit during the regular season, because who wants to go up against Lucic in the regular season when you got another 80 plus games to play, right? Like when you've got all these games to play. But come playoffs, people will pay the price, right? They'll hit, like Goudreau. I've never seen Goudreau hit so much as he got hit in that Dallas series. And I mean, he cried probably 2-3 times a game, and there was no Lucic there to come to his rescue, right? Because guys don't care in the playoffs, right? There's no, it's just not the same. Anyway, I'll let you. Yeah, I know.
Jeez.
Starting early. All right.
Mangiapane had 24 points in the first half and 31 in the second half.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, he's finished strong.
Yeah.
Really good 2 last months.
All right, Josh, you're up. Finish this off with the depth.
I can't handle it. Thirsty look like Matthew Tkachuk with his mouth guard. I don't think it's ever for 1 second in his mouth. It's always like this.
That's right.
Even mid-play. But I think he's got a lot of good points there. We got to be realistic about what Calgary can bring. But if you look at goals only, I think we each had 10 or more goal scorers, and a couple with 9 and 8 or whatever. So as far as goals versus point production, I think maybe we're close. And one thing I will say about our say Draisaitl, for instance, yeah, he's got a lot of goals, but he wasn't able to put himself in a position to score a lot of goals in the last couple of games. He does not get nearly enough credit for his passing game. I know we see it and we give him credit all the time, but he's always known as this one-dimensional guy. The battles he did, back checking in the corners, hacking guys at the blue line to stop them from getting the puck in. Like his work ethic, and when he couldn't score, what he brought to the table was something that, even someone who watches him like me all the time didn't see quite to that extent before. But his passing game's always been there. And someone like McLeod, who, he doesn't necessarily get the points right now, but his speed creates a lot of space, and it prevents the other team from really being a factor when he's on the ice. And he's got some passing skills too. He's not afraid to do things right now that he was probably afraid to do earlier in the year. So to Michael's point, are we talking about the Oilers pre-Woodcroft? Are we talking about the Oilers who were just getting their footing? Or are we talking about the confident Oilers that went 13 games over 500 or whatever it was down the stretch and just won a playoff series? I think there's something to be said for being excited and having that momentum carry over. Honestly, I think it's going to come down to who can control their emotions for the first couple of games and get settled into the way they want to play, instead of getting caught up in the hype that we're all excited and wanting to see. We want to see that hype. But if I'm a coach, I want that hype to just disappear for now. I want to see our guys settle in and play their game. So having said all that, the depth scoring, the types of goals I think that our players can create now that they weren't able to create earlier when they were being stifled, it's going to help us. And we did see it when we put guys in the blender. We talk about how hard, Connor can play with anybody, but it's not easy to play with someone like Connor. So the fact that so many guys have been able to play with him and keep up with him and figure him out enough to put it, even just to put him in the right spot. Sometimes it's easy to just give him the puck and let him do his thing, but in the playoffs, he can't really do that. And now he's got some help of guys that are willing to go in and win some of the battles and squeeze it off and give him pucks at the right moment where he's free. I like kind of the way they're playing with him that way. There's little subtleties and little timing things that are different this year for Connor. And with Connor being on a whole other plane of desire this year, I just think a lot of things have fallen into place that even we haven't seen prior to this last round and moving now. I think we're only getting to see what we're like. So this will be a learning experience for a longtime fan, and it will be a learning experience for the players, sure. But if they get some confidence in games 1 and 2 and realize what they're doing is going to work, even against the Calgary Flames, I think we can turn a lot of heads here.
Yeah. I that's exactly, and that's kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about next, because the brilliance of Connor McDavid is something that we haven't seen from a player for a little while now, right? Like this, he took over the end of the series for Edmonton, and legitimately took it over. He decided he had enough. Anybody who watched, even the third game that we lost, right? Like he willed Edmonton back into that game. Not the third, obviously game 5, but the third last. I know what I'm saying. You guys just follow along, would you? I mean, he's doing something we haven't seen from anybody in a while. Only the true greats have ever been able to do it. Sidney Crosby would be somebody who's been like that. We've seen that on occasion from Ovechkin, although I don't think it's his style of play. But Crosby for sure. And you can go back, to the Lemieux and the Gretzkys. Guys like that could actually take over games and will a team on their back. So my question to all of you is this: can Connor take this team and will it on his back to win this series? Because you know what, and Ryan, you'll love this. I I do think that if you're to put what's happened in the regular season against, for both teams, and you put them side by side, Calgary comes out the leader. They come out the favorite. There's no doubt. I mean, Tkachuk, Lindholm, and Gaudreau were absolutely phenomenal in the regular season. Markstrom has been the more consistent goalie. Defensively, they've been more consistent defensively than our team. I think there's a tale of 3 seasons, maybe 4 seasons with the Edmonton Oilers. It's how they came out the middle of the season, which was the last, remnants of Tippett, Woodcroft's beginning, Woodcroft's end, and then now the playoffs, which, seem to be Connor McDavid's playoffs. But my question is to all of you guys is this: 2 things. Can Connor McDavid will the Oilers through the series? And B, how much does Connor McDavid's performance in Game 5, 6, and 7 play on the minds of Calgary defense going into a series like this? Like, no matter what Sutter says, I'm telling you, if I'm, Anderson or Hannafin or Tanev for that matter, it's not... I might be outwardly saying I'm looking forward to that matchup, but I'm scared as shit that he's going to make me look like a kindergartner, right? So who wants to take that first? No takers. Kirk, start us off with this one.
Yeah. To answer your first question, yes, I think he can. He can do anything he wants. He's proved that time and time again.
He'll probably be calling you for a date later.
Anything.
And as far as the second question goes, like, it's going to be interesting to see if you give him any amount of time and space, he's going to burn you, and he's going to make you pay. So as I think he can, like, if you push him far enough, he's going to say, no, not today. And just like what he proved in, like you said, in game 5, like that third period was insane, like, and everybody just followed suit, with Dry there and with Kane. Game 6, everybody stepped up as a whole. I'm kind of curious to see what Woodcroft will do, if he does defer back to that nuclear option of having Draisaitl, having McDavid, or then having like Kane on the left side or whatever. Anything can really happen there. You add Yamamoto into the mix, to bring that physicality, and even McDavid himself there in game 7 against Jersey, like, he set the tone for that game. If he brings it like he did even back to like game 5, it'll be really fun to watch for sure. But just overall, like, he can change the game on a drop of a hat.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And I love you bringing up that Jersey hit, for the sake of, like, there's so many things that, people, and when you got a guy like Connor McDavid who's so far ahead of everybody behind him, they try to nitpick on he sucks defensively. Well, in my mind, he cleared that up, right? Like, he basically, he owned the Kings defensively just as much as he did, on the offense. He doesn't hit. Well, no, actually he does. Well, he doesn't take hits. No, he does that too. Right? Like, there's nothing. I mean, talk about Swiss Army knives. Like, this guy, there's nothing he doesn't do. I'm not sure he sat in the net yet and made a save, but he's pretty much done everything else. So,
Anytime.
Yeah. Yeah, Lotzi. Yeah, go for it. What's your thoughts?
I mean, I'm sitting here wearing a jersey. I got his name bar above my head, like, I'm basically living in a McDavid shrine. So yes, of course, I think he can will his team to victory. In
What part of your body has the tattoo?
Yeah,
that's for me to know. You guys find out. Don't ask questions you don't want the answers to.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, follow, and share and subscribe for the answer.
Smash that subscribe button and you'll find out where lots of his tattoo is.
But no, I mean, we're running out of superlatives for Connor. Like, he is the best player on the planet. He has been for some time now, but he's really going to cement himself as having that status in this year's playoffs, because we're starting to see him take over playoff games finally. 17 didn't have his best stuff in 17. It was like guys were targeting him. He was covered like a wet blanket. Like, it was a tough sled for him in 2017, and he lit up Chicago in the play-in series, even though we lost. He was a point a game, or at least a point a game, against Winnipeg, even though we lost. And now he's leading the playoffs and scoring after round 1 and leading his team to victory. So, like, now we're starting to see all the puzzle pieces come together for Connor. So yes, I do think he can lead the team to victory. Absolutely.
Now, what about mentally, like, for the Flames? Because there's no doubt they've heard what he did in 5, 6, and 7.
How many points did he get against the Flames in the 10 games in the All-Canadian division last season?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't it like 20, somewhere in there?
Something ridiculous, yeah.
It was something ridiculous. And I don't have the stats in front of me, but I know I was looking into this earlier. We played them 4 times this season. We scored 5 goals in 3 of those games.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, whether it's the Connor effect, whether it's just the team as a whole likes playing against Calgary. Like, Calgary is one of the best defensive teams in the league this year, but not against the Oilers.
Yeah.
So we figured something out against them, and we've seen Connor do his thing against Calgary many times. So yeah, if I'm Rasmus Anderson, if I'm Zadorov, if I'm Michael Stone, who's just subbing in here, if I'm Goodbranson, yeah, I'm scared. Absolutely.
It's a loaded question for me to ask that question because I know that it does affect the Flames, and I've brought it up here before because I remember Burke and a lot of the core guys that were on this team were on that team then when Burke was around, and he said like the Flames, you could feel the tension in the room when McDavid was in town. Like he talked about how the team was scared of him, and I don't think that changes. Like, and if anybody like that, those games, although the players like to play them down, like it's not a hatred, but there is energy to it because the fans are so involved, the buildings are so involved. There's an energy to that game, and to have that type of energy and get made to be looking like a junior age player, right, by a guy that just skates by you, and all the the Oilers, like when McDavid came out in the season opener and scored the hat trick and made Giordano look like he was still skating novice, right? Or not Giordano, it was Brody at the time, right? Like those guys don't forget that shit. Like, and they, the last thing you want, especially in a playoff series, is to be made to look like a fool from a guy, that's going to make you look like a fool at least once. You just don't want it to happen more than once, right? And so I do think I asked the question, but the answer to me is definitively yes. Mentally, it has some effect, right? You play a different game. I've played against skilled guys. I'm a defenseman, and I give them way more room than I probably should, right? When they breeze by me the first time, which happens quite a bit, but I'll give them more room the next time, right? And
I don't know if you've ever sat behind the net at an Oilers game, but watching McDavid fly through neutral zone with the puck on his stick when you're sitting lower bowl right behind the net, it's scary. It is. Even as a fan, you're like,
Our
oh
season
my God,
seats
it's flying.
Oh, yeah.
it's unbelievable. Yeah. So anyway, that's my thought. Josh.
Well, I played soccer against a guy named Mesut Merrick. He was the best player in Canada, I believe, by far for university level. And I remember having to defend him one game, and my brother was giving me advice because he played with him. And he said, look, even if he gains 25 yards on you, as long as you made him pass the ball, you've done your job. Like that's the level of success you're going to have against the guy. And it's kind of like when, say, Carey Price used to be in the net, and you'd say, well, you can't give up more than 2 because you're not scoring 2 or more against him each game. No one's getting 3 on him. I think maybe you might look at it the same way with the McDavid, where you have to score 2, at least 3, probably, because he's a multi-point guy. Like he doesn't do single point games. He's a multi-point player. So you're going to have to score at least a couple, if not 3 or more, to beat him on any given night. The problem is Calgary can do that. I'm realistic.
Yeah.
If they play a perfect game against us, they're going to have success, and it's going to be a challenge for us. We have to play perfect hockey. The thing is, I think we can do it, and I think we can kind of count on Calgary to come a little bit unhinged against the Oilers, and that's what I'm hoping. If we get under their skin a little bit, and I don't mean in terms of accepting we're the lesser team and doing dirty things after the whistle and stuff. I mean, get under their skin in terms of our skill having success against them, our speed having success against them, and them getting frustrated at the fact that they can't stop a Connor McDavid or somebody, no matter how well they play anywhere else on the ice. It's going to get to you eventually. And I'm kind of looking for a turning point where they might snap a little bit and get off their game that way, thinking about it too much. Kind of like the way people think about they spend their time building their team around trying to get back at Tom Wilson, and they forget to play hockey. It just changes your whole mindset. Some of these players, the way they affect the game. And I think Connor McDavid will do that. And the Oilers as a whole, as a team, can do that. Now, you asked if Connor could carry a team on his back. And I think, yes. I just think this is the first time he's really had a semblance of a team to work with. And that's not a shot at any of the players or anything they've had in their roster. I just mean overall, we talk about it a lot, the whole vibe of it. the whole chemistry thing, the whole, the team, the definition of a team. I think this is the first time maybe he's really been in a place where he has a team that he can put on his back. And if I was him, that would excite me to go to even greater heights. When you look at some of the game sevens that other players had around the league, Domi dominated game 7 for Carolina, won that game for them. Paul had a couple of goals for Tampa Bay out of nowhere, but nobody in game 7 that dominated their game 7 and won that game for their team did it in the same way Connor McDavid did. That was just next level stuff. And I think, if he's done it before, he certainly can do it again. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Dash, you're up, and then Dursa will finish with you on that one.
Connor McDavid had 18 points in 10 games versus the Flames last year. He had 31 shots on goal in those 10 games, 8 goals, 10 assists for the 18 points. Of those 8 goals, 5 were on the power play. This year, in 4 games, he had 7 points, 3 goals and 4 assists, 16 shots on net in 4 games. So increased his shots per game, and 2 of those 3 goals were on the power play. So clearly right there, the key is for the Flames to stay out of the box. But somewhere there's a Calgary podcast in this universe right now that's talking on the same shit, and they're saying Johnny Gaudreau had 8 points in 4 games versus the Oilers this year, and every single one of them was 5v5s. So we can wear our Oilers colored glasses there if we want, but can Connor carry a team? Will Dursa wear a camo hat on a podcast? Absolutely. There's not a chance that Connor couldn't score a triple-double for the Bulls in the 80s versus the Pistons, if you ask me. He can do whatever he wants other than GM a team. He's had mistakes there. So yeah, man, I think he's going to be able to do anything he wants to do, to the mental anguish of the opposing D, and whether what he did in game 6 and 7 stresses on them. I don't know, Michael. I think everybody puts as much pressure on themselves as they need to in the playoffs. And, it's all for that shiny chalice at the end anyways. And I think if I was a player, that's where my pressure would be. I got to win the cup, go out and play my game. I'm extra worried if Connor's there, but it's no different if it's game 5, game 80, or series 2. I just think you're aware of him, and you go out, and to Josh's point, you do your best and you just do what you can against Connor. But if Connor continues to do 2022 playoff things like Connor has, it's good night Jim Kite for the Flames.
All right. Good old Jim Kite. All right. Dursa, thoughts?
Yeah. I think Connor and Leon both are tired of individual accolades. I think they're after something bigger here. And, this guy 3 years ago willed himself back from a devastating injury over the course of an offseason at the hands of these very Calgary Flames. So if you think he's not going to be motivated and up to beat the shit out of these guys and go all world on them, I got news for you. He's going to. It's not a if.
Bring back Gio.
It's not an if. He's going to run roughshod on them, and they better buckle up, or it will be a quick series.
Yeah. Ursa's got me fired up. Wow.
What you gonna
On the
do?
promo right there.
Jeez.
That's the we're putting that on the Heavy Hockey promo for sure. You bet.
What you gonna do?
You bet.
When Connor McDavid scores a hat trick on you.
All right, guys, we're at an hour, and want to just kind of give you each sort of a last say. I want you to kind of talk about what I'd like to hear from you is what do the Flames need to do to win this series? What do the Oilers need to do to win this series? And then I'm going to finish it off tonight. I'll just ask for each of your predictions how many games Edmonton needs to win this series. Unless if Lotsburg, you've got some other prediction there. All right. Good. You better toe the line, buddy. Toe the line.
Don't be following along with that Gretzky guy.
That's right. That's right. That better be an Oilers tattoo on your ass. All right.
I'll
Yeah.
have to
So
get the 99 removed from that.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. We won't. We're not going to even mention that. Let's not even go there. So here it is, guys. Yeah. What do the Flames need to do to win? What do the Oilers need to do to win? If you want to talk about an X factor or anything like that, I mean, we obviously know Connor's going to be an X factor, so think outside the box on that one. And we'll finish off with you, Kirk, because I think you're the only one we've not finished with so far. Josh, start us off on this one.
Well, unfortunately, all the Flames have to do to win this series is be themselves. Honestly, they are a good team. They're solid. They're strong, and they can create havoc. If they can do that and get our guys running around a little bit, that's really all they need to do. Unfortunately, a factor would probably be Markstrom and how he handles an initial onslaught. One thing I really liked about what the Oilers did in Game 7 was their fire from anywhere mentality. Just get the puck to the net and make things happen. Because we're really good at puck retrieval, so it's okay to get rid of it. And hopefully that would be to our benefit. But Calgary, if they are consistent enough, then they will challenge us. There's no doubt it will be a struggle for our guys. It's just a matter of whether we can mentally keep our composure over the course of a 7-game series. And my prediction is the Oilers have to win it in 6. If it goes back to Calgary for 7, I think Calgary's going to win. So I'm going Oilers in 6.
All right. Dash.
I'd maybe just not talk and let you go to the comments if you want, Michael, because I see there's a few beauties there. Like I've had the best line of the night.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk some more. The keys are goaltending, and goaltending. Anybody that wants to argue anything but that is not watched enough hockey in the playoffs. Secondary to that, I think discipline is going to be a key. If the Oilers special teams keep clipping like they are, then the Flames are going to have to stay out of the box. And I think the Flames' key to be able to beat us is honestly going to be to take a page out of Paul Maurice's book that he wrote last year. Beat the crap out of the skill of the Oilers and hope the referees keep their whistles in the pocket and thwart that offensive rush by clogging it up, and hopefully that's enough. I think it's going to be a battle. I disagree with Josh. I think if it goes back to Calgary, we've been there before. We've had our backs up against the wall in LA in an elimination game, and we did it there too. So Oilers in 7.
All right. Dursa.
Yeah, I think Calgary's key to beating us is smart dump-ins, trying to keep the puck away from Mike Smith and going in and laying licks on the D and sustaining zone time, almost like the old San Jose Sharks used to do, tire everybody out and lull them to sleep and then score the ugly goals. LA had a little bit of something going in that series with their D kind of, D to D passing and their D's walking the line and kind of starting to sustain a little bit of pressure. But, Calgary does stuff like that and stays disciplined, but stays in your face and frustrates you and makes you take dumb penalties. I think that would go a long way in their favor. I think keys for us to win is kind of the same thing. Smart dump ins. Markstrom's a pretty good puck handler too. Cycle the puck and, Connor McDavid going all world. And I think that's going to happen. And just playing poised, especially on our back end, smart retrievals and quick retrievals, quick outs, get out of your end and get going the other way. I like our chances with, us playing that way. It's going to be a lot of fun and, big hits are going to be all over the place. I think there'll be a few fights in the series. especially early on. I would suspect Marcus Niemelainen might get a game early on in the series, but if we need to go to kind of a rookie defender late, it'll probably be Broberg, just because of his ability to get around on the ice and retrieve pucks. I think that's going to be something that's going to be crucial to winning games. I like our chances. I'm going to say Oilers in 6. I didn't want to call a game. Not that I'm superstitious, but I might be a little stitious. But I like our chances in this one. And I just think Connor's at that spot in his career where he doesn't want to be denied. And that will is going to be something to withhold. It's going to be biblical. And I'm enjoying. I'm ready for this tomorrow. I think get off to a good start. I think starting this series, a big Battle of Alberta on the road, might be better for us. Anyways, we were nervous against LA really through a game and part of the second game before we kind of settled down and got into it. And then we could use the crowd. I think Calgary might have a really vocal crowd, but it might work against them early on. So I'd like to take advantage of that and get going.
Yeah, good points. Lotzi.
And I think the short answer is, if Calgary can play their style, which is low event hockey, they'll have a decent chance. Like, if they play low event hockey, we play high event hockey. They allow fewer goals. They don't score quite as many, especially not in this playoffs. Whereas the Oilers are lighting the lamp like no tomorrow. We've done pretty good. We did pretty good defensively against LA, but still not as good as Calgary did against Dallas. So if Calgary can play a low event game, then their odds are pretty good. If we want the longer answer, then I'd say they need to stay structured and they need to utilize the stretch pass. Like Jay Woodcroft talked about, our team staying connected, like our players staying connected, staying close to each other. And like that's where their solid structure is coming from. But Calgary picked us apart using the stretch pass in that 9-5 game. And we had a hard time with that. They created chaos for us. We were scrambling, but we couldn't figure it out. So, yeah, if they can utilize that stretch pass and take advantage of some chaos, get our players further apart from each other and make us lose our structure, then I think they'll have a good chance of winning.
Yeah.
But as far as my prediction goes, I'm going to go Oilers in 6. I mean, the Oilers have scored 5 goals in 3 to 4 games that we played against the Flames this year. The Flames can defend very well. Markstrom's a fantastic goaltender, but he hasn't shown that against the Oilers. And we're a far better defensive team under Woodcroft than we have been in the last decade. So but ultimately, it's the evolution of Connor McDavid. Like, by the time he retires, he's going to be one of the greatest players to ever play this game. And this is the beginning of that evolution, that ascension to that level, because of how he's taking over playoff games right now. So, yeah, Oilers in 6 on the back of McDavid.
Yep. All right. And Kirk, finish us off in this area.
Keys for Calgary to win: stay out of the penalty box, because you get Oil on the power play. It's not going to be a fun time there for old Sad Sutter. I think the keys for Edmonton, actually keys for both teams as well. I forgot to mention, you win championships with not good goaltending, not above average goaltending, but great goaltending. It might be a goaltending duel right to Game 7 all over again there. You never know. 2 great goalies with, like everybody said, with puck handling skills. It one crack in a dam, and it could go one way. I think with our if there was one Christmas wish, if there was a Make-A-Wish, I could make a wish for just Jesse Puljujärvi to finish. Just that 1 or 2 chances where he'll get in front of the net, bury a greasy goal, and I think that's where I really like our chances, because you get guys like Yamamoto, Hyman, that just drive the puck to the net, just getting that heart, the real greasy areas. It could be that could be another X factor as you could put onto the list. And as far as predictions go, Oil in 7.
Yeah, right on, right on. Well, I mean, you all got
Think-
the Oilers. I think that's pretty good.
I think the Oilers, one of the keys that we all miss too is Draisaitl's health, boys.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you can definitely, that's it's important. I think that the interesting thing about Draisaitl that we saw in the last couple of games is how he can still contribute even if he's not 100%. I mean, and I think they even said it on the panel. Him at 80% is still better than 50% of the players out there. Like
what do we think his injury is? Pretty sure it's an ankle from everything I've
It's
heard.
high
Right?
ankle.
Yeah.
It is high
So
ankle.
high ankle sprain. So he's not going to be able to get that extension or that push off of his stride. So like he's not going to be as explosive. So like I could see him settling in on the wing for most of the series because he doesn't need to have an explosive skating stride to play wing. And Leon likes to slow the game down. Like if he gets the puck, he's slowing it down. He's protecting it. He's looking to make a play. Either that or he's settling into open space and waiting for a one-timer. It's like I don't think his game it relies on his explosive speed so much. So I don't think that ankle is going to be as big of a factor as some people might think.
Yeah.
What about the face-offs though, Lotsy?
Well, just
There's
hold
no
on. Let
skating
me,
in face-offs. You got to plant your feet and you got to spin and you got to stop
Oh,
guys from not slashing you.
So his
took
percentage
face-offs.
goes down a little bit,
Yeah.
but I don't think there's a very high. I think face-offs are a little overrated. It's just like I don't think there's a huge correlation between face-off percentage and winning hockey games.
And he did.
There are times late where they matter. But I think overall,
Possession matters and face-offs led to possession. But
I think in Game 7 you probably want to win face-offs when they're in your own end when there's a game on the line.
All right, I'm putting you all on mute because it's my turn to give my take here. Fuck all of you.
you didn't.
Wow.
We didn't bring you on your show for your opinion.
That's right. Screw you all. Screw you all. And the whole point of this is get 5 guys to say whatever the hell they want, and then me give the actual truth of the matter. And so no,
We'll seldom differ.
Yeah. As far as face-offs go, and then I'll say my piece, though, Pekka might have something to do with that. I mean, that was the best we've ever done on face-offs, and that's the last time we ended up at a Stanley Cup final. But anyway, keys to Calgary winning this series. I mean, you guys talked about it. It's about Calgary playing the style of game that they played in the regular season. I think the interesting thing about saying that's a key to the series is regular season is over, guys. Like they've got to play a different style than they played then. And they need to put the puck in the net, right? Like, Ottinger or not, like they got to put the puck in the net. And so they've got to find their scoring touch and figure it out pretty darn quick, because if they don't, we might be pretty happy fans at the end of all of this. But to me, that's what they've got to figure out. I mean, you could say it's going back to what they did in the regular season, but that doesn't work anymore. It's a different game right now. And I'm trolling Flames fans when I say, Gaudreau is crying all the time. He was giving the puck up a half a second earlier every time because he could hear the footsteps. He'd never been hit like that in his life, right? None of those guys have. And I think it affected their play. And so to my point, the keys to, and that's not to say I'm not telling you that the Oilers are coming in this as the favorite, because they're not. I think Calgary is a better team than what that series made it look like. But for me, the Oilers' key to winning this series is exactly watching Dallas game tape, right? And figuring out or replicating to some extent how they played the Goudreaus and the Lindholms and the Kachucks and playing them hard. I know it's not an Oilers style of game to play, ultra physical, but Goudreau needs to continue to be looking over his shoulder and expecting the big hit. And if he's not, he burns you, right? And if we're gonna get stuck into a regular season style of play, that's gonna play into Calgary's favor. And the Oilers got to play playoff hockey to win this series. And then obviously Connor McDavid's got to do what Connor McDavid does. But this is the first time I've ever, and I keep talking about it, but it's the first time I saw Connor McDavid go into the playoffs ready for playoff hockey. And he has just been on a different level. And then, of course, we can't discount goaltending. As much as I feel like Smith is there, just the way he plays makes you never feel 100% comfortable. And Markstrom has, just consistently been better. But the two of them, it could be definitely a goaltending battle. But the one thing that, and I can't remember who said it, it's whoever breaks the dam first, because both of these goalies, when they get lit up, they get lit up, right? And in a series like this, you could end up with a different goalie in Game 3 for one of the teams because their goalie just is total wreck, right? It was like the goalie from Slapshot and wondering, what his name is anymore. And I'm not saying it's going to be Markstrom, and I'm not going to say it's going to be Smith. It's one of them. It might be one of them. You might see a couple. You might end up seeing a couple of blowouts in the first 2 or 3 games. You might. Depends, right? We could see a couple of different things in this series. I'm gonna go with my X factor outside of McDavid. I'm gonna go with guys like the Hymans and the Canes in that, and say, if they can put the puck in the net and really rattle the Flames, because I don't think the Flames really have seen these players play under Woodcroft. I think that's in the Woodcroft system. I think that's going to be the biggest X factor for this series. So that's my piece. Now,
I really thought you were going to say Duncan Keith's intangibles.
That's right. Yeah, Duncan Keith's intangibles. Well, that's my second X factor. And then I think this series is going 7 games, and I think if it doesn't go 7 games, it's because, as I said, as somebody used the term breaking the dam, it's because somebody broke the dam on one of the goalies, and it just became a blowout. And there's going to be one side, and I'm not going to say it's Edmonton or Calgary because I think it could be either, but there is the potential that this could be an ugly 4-game sweep for either team, right? And I think you'll find out in the first period, right? It'd be, it could be Connor McDavid going in and scoring 3, and or it could be the other way around. I really don't think that's going to happen, but I could see it being an ugly series where one fan base leaves.
The province, yeah,
that's right. Yeah, they move out, or they get their separation. Yeah.
What if we get like a Pittsburgh Philly from a few years ago where every game was like 10-8?
Oh, and it could be something like that. You never know. I mean, that would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? It would sure
entertainment value through the roof.
It would put the whole goaltender wins the series thing to bed, right? Yeah. Anyway, that's
tough to keep up a 9-4-3 and a 9-3-8 that way.
That's right. Yeah, there won't be neither of those goalies be getting a Conn Smythe.
Way out of the Smythe conversation.
That's right.
Well, they directed 300 shots on goal tonight.
That's right. Hey, speaking of goal, it's going into OT in St. Louis and with St. Louis and Colorado right now.
Let's go Blues.
Bennington reborn.
Yeah. I mean, that's,
who had that on their bingo card?
Yeah.
Given the chance, and boom, he's just like back to 2019 all over again.
Does that mean we can have Billy Husso next year?
Yeah.
So
same guy that had Mike Smith with a shutout in Game 7 was calling a Binnington resurrection.
Bennington, man. I mean that, who knows? Like if Ottinger had gone through that round, like I actually was a little bit scared of playing Dallas, to be honest with you, a little bit more so than playing Calgary. Like with Calgary, I've always felt like when you play a team like Calgary, like if you're the Oilers, there's all that emotion that you just don't know what could happen, right? Like somebody gets really fired up and wins some type of emotional battle, and that's how they win the series. Whereas Dallas, it's not the same type of emotion, but it's Ottinger, right? Like if he comes, like if he wills that team just like Bennington or Hasek, will the Sabres to the finals, or Kiprasov with the Flames, right? Like he just, I was that was legit fearful in my head. Although I would have also loved to watch the Flames lose. So
I was thinking about that earlier today. The playoffs, how it works. Like Team A can beat Team B 10-0. Team B can beat Team C 10-0. So you would assume 10A would kill Team B, Team C. But sometimes teams just match up a certain way against each other, and it just doesn't work out that way. That's what the amazing thing about, like I said, every series is a brand new day, and literally anything can happen, especially in NHL versus any other sport. It's amazing.
I want to put this out there because it was a take from a Toronto media guy about the Maple Leafs losing the first round. And I was honestly the best take that I've heard from Toronto media, and he said this. He said because all I keep watching now or hearing is Leafs fans saying, "Well, you guys played LA and we played Tampa," and the point is that he said is Toronto was a favorite to win the Stanley Cup. They had to beat Tampa. They had to if they didn't beat Tampa, they weren't going to win the cup. Right? Like that's the so it doesn't matter, right? Like they clearly weren't the favorite to win the cup, or weren't,
Look at the 06 Oilers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Ugh.
let's not
That's opening old wounds again.
That's right. Wow.
Want Marc-Andre Bergeron's head on a stake, blowing out Rolly's knee.
Oh man.
Some of the good news is, Michael, if you listen to Jason Woodley interviewed on Gregor earlier this week, he had talked about Ottinger and the fact that even though that unworldly save percentage, he said that Calgary actually didn't fully take advantage of the weaknesses that were there, that they, there was a lot of gaps laterally and they didn't get him moving back and forth enough. And the problem with that is that, again, like Dallas plays that same style as LA, where they can really fill lanes and clog up defensively. So, I think Woodley is bang on, and I think Woodcroft needs to take a page out of that and go and have a look at what Dallas did versus Calgary to make sure that they weren't, because I don't want Smith moving laterally too much.
That's my point though, is I watched and I you think I'm trolling, but I'm not. Like this is legitimately a watch Goudreau, and I've never seen him miss so many passes. Right? Like he's got the puck a lot for a guy that the way he plays, but he missed more passes than he's ever missed, and only because it's like a fraction of a second. Like the guy doesn't love to get hit. Every time he gets hit, he looks like he's been shot. And if you're a Flames fan and you're telling me I'm lying, you don't watch him because he does. There was not a single game where there wasn't a cutaway to him with his hands to his face or something. Literally, like there was not a single game, and there's no other player. And hey, I mean the guy's like 5 feet tall, right? So I get it. He's not very big. But that's how you play against him. If you're not playing physical against him, and he's got time and space, and he feels like he's got time and space, he'll burn you. Because as much as I'd love to say he's a shitty player, he's a damn good player. He's an elite player. He put up over 100 points. He was, he was great this year, and did, he does amazing things with the puck when he's got time and space. And if the Oilers can replicate how Dallas played him, which like there was one time where he was cross-check, head first into the crossbar, right? Like, after a play. I mean, that's just unheard of. If you talk to Flames fans before, they say Gaudreau never gets hit because he's so fast. No, he doesn't get hit because, like, I wouldn't want to fight Lucic either in the regular season. I wouldn't want to fight him in the playoffs, but he's less likely to fight in the playoffs, right? That's my
Cass and Lucic are buddies. They're likely not going to fight. Who's going to fight first in this series?
Kane
and who? Who's going to take him on? Is it one of those defensemen or is it Lucic?
Good Branson, brother.
Good Branson,
yeah.
Zadorov.
Taychuk, is it the Taychuk Klingberg thing? Because it's just right off the bat they get that over with. I don't know.
Chuck dropping him. The only thing he's going to do is drop it into his little shell.
Yeah,
that's it.
I'm going to take notes on how many flying butt checks he gives in the first period of the series.
Yeah,
and I bet you 3 is my over on first period.
That's the other thing, though, that the Oilers need to do that, like I thought Dallas did well, and it started with Klingberg, right? Was, you have to, in the media or however you do it, guys like Anderson, like those guys get trolled in the media, and they fall for it. Tkachuk falls for it, right? Like those guys spent more time trying to fight Klingberg than they did trying to score goals. Like, and what did he say? All he said was, Anderson looks tougher than he is, or talks tougher than he is, right? Like, if that's all it took to set them off, I mean, if I'm Evander Kane, I'm shooting my mouth off, right? I'm right there, and I'm making sure they hear every word of it, right?
Well,
because
Josh,
they'll fall for it.
As Josh said there earlier, Dallas had them unhinged, and they barely got any shots on net. They just clamped down, like as Dash said, they clamped down defensively. So if you take that 1-3-1 and put that into play with Woodcroft had there in the end of the Edmonton series there with LA, boy, you get him a little bit frustrated, then he got him.
And that's how the Oilers won Game 6 and 7. Like they were doing a great job of getting sticks and bodies in lanes. It's like they can play that way.
Simple, like less is more. Like just keep it simplified, and just keep them pinned in. Not with the stretch passes. You obviously got to watch that. That's a given.
Yeah.
But if you clamp down on your defensive play through the neutral zone, man, it's going to be a long ass series for them. I could see
the Oilers can make it easy on themselves too by doing a lot more of what Zach Hyman and Evander Kane do, which is getting the puck deep and just working guys over. Right? We see like McDavid does it, Draisaitl does it, McLeod does it, Nuge does it. They all get to the half wall and then they turn back. They do the button hook and they're looking for a trailer, right? If they turn the puck over in that situation and it's moving backwards, Calgary's going the other way. That's not what we need. If we have the opportunity, we need to err on the side of getting the puck deep and winning races pucks.
Let me ask you guys a question, and I've wanted to ask you this for a little while now. We've had our Woodcroft era, and we talked before about how they lacked identity, the Oilers did. We didn't really know what a Tippett team looked like. We had no identity or structure. And we've already talked about, Calgary, if they play their game, which we all seem to know what it is, a Calgary-style game. What does LA do? We knew their game. So now that we've seen what Woodcroft does, him and Manson, they've got their fingerprints all over what we see on the ice. And we've talked positively about how the Oilers are a team now. So what would you say now? We assume they have an identity, which is working. What is their identity in your eyes? How would you define the Edmonton Oilers team right now?
That's a good question. I feel like that's the kind of question my teacher would ask. We'd all just sit there with our hands down hoping the smart kid would answer. If I'm going to answer that, I'm going to say, which is what I alluded to before, was chemistry, right? Like this is the new, the new culture of the Oilers is that all of the players have some chemistry together. We were worried about what Kane brought to the locker room. I would suggest to you that none of that ever came to fruition. And I was I was the first one who thought that, shit, like, is he going to be able to? Will they hate him by the end of the season? I get the sense that they love the guy, right? Like, I get the sense that, everybody loves him on the team. I get the sense that everybody loves Yamo. I get the sense that, like when they start talking about McDavid, right? And to finally hear him with a genuine interview after a series, like, think about what McDavid said at the end of the series and how, the look on his face and everything that he said there. That's the McDavid they see in the locker room. That's the one we've never seen. We've never had a view of that. He did one interview on Spittin' Chicklets where he was a little bit more genuine. But this was the first time I saw him, look and sound like a leader and not some media personality. And I'll tell you what, as far as identity goes, I get it. Like, they got more chemistry now than they've ever had. And I think that starts with liking the coach, right? Like, loving the coach and loving what he brings. Anyway, that's my thought on it.
I'll just say three things. One, Woodcroft is always positive. And when the main thing I noticed with Tippett was he was like that angry old man yelling at the clouds. He just, we could do this better. We could do that better. Whereas Woodcroft is the exact opposite. Like, he's just like, we're going to regenerate. We're going to, we're going to look at video. And a lot of guys have said it like that. I still say it. That interview with Derek Reiner, that one, I think it was a pregame, he said details. Like, it was a damning comment against Tippett. I remember when Tippett got hired, we got five skaters going in, 5 skaters back. Nobody walked the walk. Whereas, with Woodcroft coming in, he's basically, both him and Madsen, like, just hammered the details. And it's shown even with the goaltenders. So I lost track there what I was going to say with the other two, but yeah, just I think details and just the positivity. Just it's infectious, and it goes from your, and Woodcroft said himself, like, great players need to be led still too. And I am a firm believer that coaches are your guidepost. They tell you where to go. They tell you what to do in certain situations, and they will follow. Like, even your late it goes with Connor and Leon, it just trickles right down to everybody.
Yeah.
I'll piggyback on that. I think, the defense is absolutely key to Kirk's point. This is the best group of puck moving defensemen that the Oilers have had since ever. Name me the top 6 that could move a puck. I mean, even back in the day, they still had, Huddy and Lowe and Randy Gregg and guys that necessarily puck transporters. So
Coffee,
and it did, and it fell on Coffee, right? And ultimately, I think our identity is we own the 2 biggest gunslingers in the league, and right now we play smart defense with an absolutely direct and unrelenting attack. That's our identity.
I'm having flashbacks of Happy Gilmore here. The guy can drive the ball 400 yards, but has 0 short game. But eventually, after the movie, he just starts to sink some putts, and it's like, Happy learned how to putt. And yeah, the Oilers learned how to play defense. We've got the 2 big guns. We're a high-flying offensive team, but we've.
Excuse me while I comment on YouTube. Now you have the best fly.
Happy Gilmore reference wins the day every time.
Actually, you just got it, Josh. Well done.
To me, there's 2 turning points like that where they found an identity, and letting Tippett go and bringing in Jay was one of them, and the acquisition of Evander Kane kind of brought some
Kulak boys.
Yeah, it kind of brought some swagger to this group. They stopped playing kind of afraid, and it seems like, since that all that happened, they're in the fight every night, with the exception of the last game of the year against Calgary. I mean, every other game they were in the fight, and
They were in that fight too. They're on pace for 20 goals halfway through
Yeah.
the game. They just
they
fell off the cliff in the second half.
they started playing a more responsible game. And if you can mold your identity as you go, I'll take the last game of the season so far against LA. I mean, they played pretty lights out hockey, that hockey game. They played a defensively sound game. They shut out the Kings in an elimination game, and LA was lucky it was only 2-0. So I think if they can build off of that game, I like our chances against Calgary.
Yeah. Right. Well, Josh, you going to answer your own question?
I don't know. I like all those answers. I'm pretty fired up now. It's almost 2 a.m. here, and I'm ready to roll. I wish the game started now.
So-
Have to watch a Steel Magnolias marathon to
That's
fall
right.
asleep.
I got to ask you guys, because we joke about it, but we've all got our superstitions, right? The reason I'm wearing this black cap tonight and not my Oilers cap is because I've been wearing it's very similar to Josh's Oilers cap for every Oilers win, and so, but only on game day. And so, I was today I went to go put on the Oilers cap, and I thought, oh, yeah, I can't do that.
But I don't want to waste this on. I don't want to waste this on scrubs like these guys.
That's right. And so, as silly and as stupid as I know it is, I'll never wear the same jersey after a loss. So, I'll change it up. But I'm incredibly superstitious as a fan. How many of you are like that? And what are some of the things you do?
To an extent, for me, like I always try to wear the jersey that they are wearing. Like game one, I went to game one and we were told to wear orange in the stands, so I wore the orange one and we lost. So that has been in my closet the whole rest of the series.
Yeah.
I saw funny story. Like I had my girlfriend over. We were watching game 3, and Evander Kane got the hat trick. And I went to my room and I got my hat, and I threw my hat across my living room. It stayed on my floor throughout the rest of game 4 and game 5. I didn't realize it until after game 5. I was like, oh shit, my hat was on the floor those last 2 games. I picked up the hat. I wore the hat out to game 6 to watch with some friends, and they won. I wore the hat to game 7, and they won. So that hat needs to be on my head until we lose again.
Yeah, right on.
I was on pins and needles because I was growing kind of the playoff beard, and Friday I kind of shaved and just said, fuck it, we're going to win anyway. And when we went out Saturday night, I switched the camo hat for the blue hat just to show Dash that I had more than one.
Right on, yeah.
More than one Oiler hat.
You know what? We couldn't see the camo hat anyway, so
I had, yeah. I had to wear my McDavid away jersey, and Kim wore my Nurse kind of third jersey, so that got us the win. Yeah, but I seem to have had good success with my McDavid away jersey, so I think tomorrow it doesn't even necessarily have to be on me, but it has to be wherever I am.
Yeah. Josh, you got to let the people watching and listening know what your superstition is.
I mean, my only superstition is making sure that I check all my voicemails from Mrs. Tough Call after Josh goes to bed after the first period.
He's busy on that phone, isn't she?
Lovely lady. She's a peach.
She's a lovely lady.
I mean, I could do a whole episode on superstitions for me, honestly.
Me too, dude.
But for this series, and I'll tell you why I think they work. Honest to God, there was one Super Bowl the Patriots were playing and they were losing, and I was sitting in the wrong chair. I sit in the same chair every day when I watched them. And I was in the wrong chair because one of my kids was sitting in the other one. And I told him, no, you got to get up. You got to go. I got to switch something. And my son still laughs to this day. I booted him out, sat in the chair, and they came back and won.
Nice.
I always sit in because
if that's the Falcons game, you did it just in time.
No, it was one earlier. I didn't wait that long. I would never dare wait that long. I'd given up on that game actually.
I almost did.
But I usually sit in seat 11 because when I played, I wore number 11, and I would sit in chair 11 and watch, like, do my pregame sort of mental visualization. So now when I go to rinks, I was just in Truro this weekend watching my son play spring hockey, and I sat in chair number 11, and they won the first game, but when the second game, they were up 5-1. There was like 2 minutes left. And I wasn't sitting with my wife that game. She was down with her parents. And I wanted to see her parents and whatever. 2 minutes left. I walked over. By the time I got there, it was 6-2. And 30 seconds later, it was 6-3. So everyone knew. And so I even got a text saying, "What the fuck?" And a picture of my empty seat. And everyone was telling me to go back. And when I did, we won the game. So with all that said, like, things just seem to happen. So for the Kings series, game 1, I watched the whole game, stayed up till 2 and watched that giveaway and the nightmare of the way that ended. So that was no good. Game 2 and 3, I watched the first period and I closed my eyes and said, you know what, if I fall asleep, that's fine. I'll watch the next 2 periods in the morning like I usually do anyway. And they won both those games. Game 4, I actually didn't watch it all at the moment. I think that was the game I didn't watch. Game 5, I watched 2 periods and then went to sleep and watched the 3rd period in the morning, and they still lost. So I said, no, I can't. I got to go back to just the 1 period, game 6 and 7. So I go to bed after the first period now for every game from here on out. I'm going to bed in the first period and watching the next 2 the next morning. And like I said, I'm so superstitious about things that I feel like even in the morning, even though I know the game's long over, I feel like things I do can still affect the outcome. Just have that sense. So I'm very cautious, and I'll be continuing to do that for the rest of the playoffs.
So you do like Zen mental training as a fan?
Kind of. I was big into the mental aspect of the game. It's funny somebody mentioned it. I was big on mental visualization and seeing yourself do things the right way in your mind before you do them. So then you go out and it just works out that way. So I don't picture the games that I'm not playing in, but I have my zones where I feel mentally comfortable watching a game. That's for sure.
What about you, Kirk? Anything?
I got zero superstitions, no stitions, no nothing. I'm not shaving my beard off if they're going down 3-0 in the series. Nope. It's just, I call it as I see it. Let the chips fall where they may, and it is where it is.
That sounds logical.
Who let Jason Greger in here tonight?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I was going to quote him actually. Say, yeah, I heard on radio.
Shout out!
I was going to say, I like Gord Biller. Every time he says shout out, then they score. He's like, and just a reminder, what we say has no bearing on the outcome. But he said that too many times in his career for it to be true, I think.
Oh man. You know that when anybody mentions shutout, right? Like I think we all do, or maybe with the exception of Kirk, most of us cringe. Yeah, Dash, you got any big ones? I know you've got.
I got tons. I could do a whole show on it too, especially if we're going to talk about how I play hockey versus how I watch hockey. But streaming Jack Michaels. No matter who's doing the broadcast on TV, I'll hit pause a couple times to make sure the TV slows down to the stream and make sure that's happening. And to Ryan's point, I was at game 1 live as well, and obviously didn't stream Jack Michaels, so there was our loss that time. My car flags, the order of my car flags, the color of my car flags. We'll stop there.
Yeah. No, I'm in with all of that too. I mean, what socks I'm wearing matters. It's like
I wear Oilers colors on game days, even to work.
Yeah,
and
as you should.
I've got a pair of bright orange shorts that I've been wearing every game day except for game 4, I believe. There was one game where an away game, home games, no question, I'm wearing them. but
You're
away
damn right,
games are hit and
Stars.
miss. But yeah, they're for right now we're doing well, so I'm keeping them on.
Rally hats, boys.
Rally, cap it up.
There we go. There we go.
Yes.
Well, guys, it's 2:00 here in Atlantic Canada, and I know Josh and I are starting to fade a little bit. Appreciate you getting on for a season or series preview with the Calgary Flames versus the Edmonton Oilers. We got lots for those of you listening or watching. Lots of new stuff on heavyhockey.com right now. Lutzberg did a article about McClellan and Woodcroft, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then
The student teacher.
that's right. And Kirk, I read it too. Kirk, yours had to be a goalie article, right?
No, it was just
Third time's a charm.
Yeah, just a series wrap up and a little tiny preview of what's to come here with the Battle of Alberta.
That's right. Yeah, and that was good. And then, of course, Eric did Connor McDavid little call. This is great.
It's got to be done.
Yeah, not getting in on this one.
Neither am I.
So you guys, no, great. Check out heavyhockey.com. Please have a read of those great articles. Thanks, guys, for coming here, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. We're going to continue with the heavy hockey post games and all the silliness. It must be 2:00 in Alberta too. It must be 2 a.m. there too. Where's your rally cap, Lotzie? Jeez.
It's safe and sound in the closet. I could just,
He'd already told you he hucked it across the room. It hasn't moved since.
It hasn't moved since. All right, guys. We'll be back. Maybe not next Tuesday because it'll be a game night if it goes a little bit longer than we hope. And,
Yeah, game night, I'll be asleep. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah, and Josh will be asleep. Hopefully, we're back for next series, though, doing another series preview.
There we go.
Yeah, boys.
I've got
yeah.
I've got tickets to Game 1, by the way, in Calgary. But I am about to, after we're done this show here, I'm about to put them up for sale. So if anybody wants to go, you better call me right now. All right.
pay you Tuesday for tickets today.
What's that?
I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for tickets.
Yeah.
I'd be scared to go in the Saddle Dome. I don't want that roof to cave in from the weight of the fans' disappointment.
I had
It's a
tickets.
safe-
I had tickets to Game 2 as well. But I sold those today. I thought initially that I might be a chance that I could make it out there for the games, and so I got both games. Didn't work out that way with oil prices the way they are. Flights are absolutely ridiculous right now. So the Oilers got to make it far enough in the series that they're playing an Eastern-based team.
Jeez.
Yeah, and then you will see me there in the stands. The only place I probably wouldn't go is Philly. That might be the only place I wouldn't.
Well, hey,
go.
no worries
Speaking
there.
of
This
safety
year.
things,
Yeah.
this just in, Michael. Philadelphia did not make the playoffs.
That's right. They didn't. Oh, and Colorado scored. In fact, Mr. Manson's son scored the game winner.
Wow. Yeah, boy, Josh.
Yeah. So all good there. Could have been an Oiler at one point, possibly. All right, guys. Who wants the last word tonight?
Me. Ladies and gentlemen, the pleasure is all ours. Good night.
Oh, yeah.